Hello, you've caught me thinking about the good old days, an indefinable time when everything was indefinably better for indefinable reasons.
Like most 20-somethings who reminisce about the past in an ironic attempt at self-deprecation.
Do you remember dial-up? We're so old!
When I say the good old days, what I actually mean is a few years ago, a time when we had exactly the same stuff as we do now, only bigger and slower and without any Twitter scandals.
Video games, however, have changed massively in that time, both in terms of their visual quality and how we interact with their worlds and other players. This week's Friday feature then is all about 7 video games that prove just how far PlayStation has come.
Starting with Tomb Raider, a game that wowed the world with expansive three-dimensional play areas and that made everyone who'd taken an early plunge with the original PlayStation the envy of all their mates.
You can move forwards.
And backwards.
It was the most incredible thing we'd ever seen, like playing through an Indiana Jones movie only with dinosaurs and twin Berettas. Fast forward 18 years and Tomb Raider Definitive Edition on PS4 shows us how far we've come. Lara's now a fully modelled squint and she could be real human being, leaping through explosive set pieces that are, yes, just like playing through an Indiana Jones movie, only this time with muddy skin and tress effects.
The game that's really thrusting this particular genre forward on PlayStation, however, is Uncharted 4, which features the most spectacular in-game environments probably ever, and it's not even finished yet.
What a difference a couple of decades makes. Flex those hair pixels, Nate. Get it wet. Yes. And speaking of wet, that's just what Drive Club makes my bonnet, with its beautiful dynamic weather effects.
Hey, America, stop typing out confused comments. Bonnet means hood.
Drive Club looks so incredible in the rain I select it every time I play. Soggy grey Scotland, yes please, despite the fact it makes things far more difficult. It's not just the environment Drive Club nails, however. The cars themselves are painstakingly crafted, from the glinting majesty of the metallic bodywork to the beautiful fabric of the interior upholstery.
Play it with a decent gaming wheel and you simply can't get closer to the feeling of actual driving.
To see how far PlayStation has come, just rewind 17 years to when Gran Turismo revolutionized virtual racing on PS1. A game so incredibly authentic, the series is now used as a springboard for the careers of actual racing drivers. All I remember is my dad playing it and hogging the PlayStation all night. Bloody super realistic Gran Turismo.
Everyone remembers the first PlayStation game they ever played, don't they? Well, when I unwrapped my shiny new console for the first time, it came bundled with Independence Day the game, Overboard, one I can't remember, and the game I played more than any other, Actua Soccer Club Edition.
I just couldn't believe how much like real football this was. It had actual Premier League teams. It had the smooth, honeyed tones of Barry Davis on commentary duty.
A little ambitious, that long ball.
It was the most immersive, realistic football game out of all 4 games I got that Christmas.
Ooh, unlucky Ryan.
Take a look at modern day heavyweights FIFA and PES and it's fair to say there's some improvement. That's definitely Ronaldo, for instance, whereas the only definite thing you can say about this lot is that they are, a pixelated aggregation of a human being.
I do miss Barry Davis, though.
Oh my god, you're so old.
I know.
Remember when Grand Theft Auto was that oddball top-down thing with the pixel graphics and the uber violence and the hushed phone calls to your mate about whether or not you'd managed to steal a copy off your big brother? Well, I do, and I don't even have a big brother. Grand Theft Auto pushed all the boundaries. The games are for kids boundary, pushed. The games aren't about running people over boundary, pushed.
The you always play as the hero boundary, annihilated, so much so that I even role-played my own imaginary villains like Charlie Chainsaw and the Pink Taxi Murderer, although I've been told I can't go into more detail about those if I want to keep my job on this channel.
GTA 5 on PS4 continued the good work started by its predecessors and stamped those already broken boundaries further into the dirt of gaming history. You get to play as a trio of criminals in GTA 5, one of whom, Trevor, is essentially a personified satirical jab at the sensationalist media furore that's followed GTA since the 90s. But more obviously than that, look at how the world has expanded. It's gained an extra dimension for starters and shed the cartoony facade in favour of a more realistic aesthetic, even though that same eccentric soul still boils away underneath.
But can I kill a bird with a grenade? We've come so far.
Haven't we just? Here's Doom on PS1, looking at it all these years later, and there's still a wonderful magic to that new and exciting 3D space. But enough from me, Nathan's the expert on Doom, so here he is to tell you why it's brilliant via the medium of intelligent sentences.
I would say that there is something, and I've always said it, there's like a peculiar rightness to it, and there is something to do with the aesthetics of the world and the kind of the hellish architecture, which works perfectly. There's a perfect fit between that, the execution of it aesthetically, and I would call it kinetically.
Yeah, whatever. Have you seen this bit where you shoot a thing and it sounds a bit like dance music? Anyway, Destiny is the game that shows us how far PlayStation has come here, not just in terms of graphics, but in terms of how we interact with one another. Imagine you could go back in time and show early 90s you, a fire team, a strike, the Vault of Glass raid, with 6 of you screaming at each other from all corners of the country over the internet.
Logged in, level 30 Titan.
Logged in, level 32 Warlock.
Well, I'm playing Metal Gear Solid. PS1 Classics on Vita actually, but we can still talk on party chat, can't we?
Crying out loud.
Chalk it up then, Dave. Metal Gear obviously shows us how far we've come, and not just because I'm playing a game that 18 years ago was bleeding edge on a handheld.
The Metal Gear series is a beautiful example of how not just games but hardware has evolved over time, with each entry a beautiful homage to the technology that gave it birth. Metal Gear Solid on PS1 revelled in the physical analog technology of the 90s. The classic Psycho Mantis moves your controller scene, a playful demonstration of gaming's tangible realness.
I love that scene so much, I shrieked in delight and sprinted off to tell my mum how amazing it was. She didn't care.
Fast forward to 2008 and Metal Gear Solid 4, while looking amazing, throws a couple of playful jibes at the change in tech. For instance, Otacon asks you to change to Disc 2 before getting confused and realising there is no longer any Disc 2. Better yet, if during the battle with Screaming Mantis you come up with the smart idea of changing your controller number to 2, Otacon and Rose will explain to you how that just won't work now there aren't any physical controller ports.
That's all very interesting, isn't it? But if you prefer an impactful visual representation of how far Metal Gear has come, just look at this bit from the intro to Ground Zero's Deja Vu mission.
There you go, 16 years in a heartbeat. We're down to the last entry now, and I really can't be arsed actually with thinking about anything more complicated than the gulf in visual quality between an angry thunder deity from Final Fantasy VII and his subsequent incarnation in Final Fantasy XV. Ready for that gulf? It's a big one. Here's Ramuh in Final Fantasy VII. Lovely. And here he is in Final Fantasy XV Episode Duske. Spoilers.
Dave, get over here.
Nate, get over here.
Holly, get over here.
Enough said. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you can think of any other examples of games that have changed drastically over the course of PlayStation history, then please let us know in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks also for subscribing, because I know that's what you just did. And see you next week for another Friday feature.